Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Semiotic Resources in Discourse Analysis. Semiotic resources in discourse analysis refer to the different modes, signs, and symbols that individuals use to create meaning. These resources go beyond spoken or written language to include visual images, gestures, spatial arrangements, and even sound, all of which play a role in communication. Discourse analysis, especially when combined with multimodal analysis, examines how these semiotic resources interact and contribute to the overall meaning-making process in social contexts. Semiotic resources are tools that people use to represent ideas, identities, power relations, and cultural practices. In discourse analysis, the study of semiotic resources involves understanding how different signs and modes work together to convey meaning and how social actors use them strategically in different contexts to influence interpretation, perception, and interaction. 1. Key concepts of semiotic resources in discourse analysis. Multimodality. Combining different modes of communication. Multimodality refers to the use of multiple modes of communication, such as text, image, gesture, sound, and layout, within a single act of meaning-making. Multimodal discourse analysis examines how these different semiotic modes interact and complement one another to create meaning that goes beyond what language alone can convey. Textual mode includes written or spoken language. For example, the words on a poster or in a speech. Visual mode includes images, color schemes, and spatial arrangements. For example, photographs in a magazine or the layout of a web page. Gestural mode includes body language, facial expressions, and movement. For example, the gestures someone uses while speaking to emphasize a point. Auditory mode includes sounds, tone, and music. For example, the use of background music in a film to convey emotion or mood. Example: in a political advertisement, the verbal message might communicate specific policy positions, textual mode, while the images, visual mode, and background music, auditory mode, work together to evoke emotions like hope, trust, or fear. A smiling image of the candidate combined with uplifting music might create an overall positive message, reinforcing the campaign's themes even beyond the spoken words. Signs and symbols. Representing ideas through semiotic systems. Signs and symbols are central to semiotics, the study of how meaning is constructed through signs. A sign can be anything that communicates a meaning, including words, images, sounds, or objects. The meaning of a sign is not inherent but is constructed through social and cultural conventions. Iconic signs. These resemble the thing they represent. For example, a photograph of a tree is an iconic sign because it visually resembles a real tree. Indexical signs. These have a direct, causal link to what they represent. For example, smoke is an indexical sign of fire. Symbolic signs. These have an arbitrary relationship to what they represent and rely on cultural conventions. For example, a red rose symbolizes love or romance, but this meaning is culturally constructed rather than inherent. Example: in a corporate logo, the design may use both symbolic and iconic signs. The Apple logo, for instance, is iconic in that it visually resembles an apple, but it is also symbolic of innovation, simplicity, and cutting-edge technology. The meaning of the logo is constructed through its association with the Apple brand over time. Materiality of semiotic resources. The physical form of semiotic elements. The materiality of semiotic resources refers to their physical or sensory form, which can influence how they are interpreted and used. This concept recognizes that semiotic resources are not just abstract symbols but have a material presence, e.g., images, sounds, textures, or spatial arrangements, that shapes their meaning. Medium. The material form of a semiotic resource often determines how it is perceived and interpreted. For instance, A message conveyed through a tweet might carry different meaning than the same message conveyed through a formal letter due to the different materiality of the platforms. Embodied communication. Gestures, posture, and facial expressions are semiotic resources that rely on the body as a medium. The materiality of these resources, i.e., physical movement and presence, adds layers of meaning that complement or contrast with spoken words. Example: a protest sign that says, "Climate Justice Now," uses both textual and material semiotic resources. The handwritten nature of the sign might convey authenticity and urgency, while the materials used, e.g., cardboard, bold marker, reflect the grassroots nature of the protest. The material form of the sign adds to its meaning beyond the words themselves. Modal affordances. The capabilities and limitations of different modes. Affordances refer to the possibilities and limitations of different semiotic modes. Each mode, whether linguistic, visual, auditory, or gestural, has specific affordances that shape what it can do and how it can convey meaning. Linguistic affordances. Language is well suited for expressing abstract concepts, details, and logical arguments. Visual affordances. Images can quickly communicate ideas, emotions, or complex relationships without needing words. Gestural affordances. Gestures can convey emphasis, emotion, or complement speech, especially in face-to-face communication. Auditory affordances. Sound, such as tone of voice or background music, can convey mood, urgency, or emotion in ways that language alone cannot. Example: in a social media meme, the combination of an image, visual mode, and a caption, textual mode, exploits the affordances of both modes. The image may set the tone or evoke an immediate emotional response, while the caption adds context or humor. The combined affordances of image and text create a meaning that neither could fully convey alone. Resemiotization. The transformation of meaning across different contexts and modes. Resemiotization refers to the process through which meaning changes as it moves across different contexts, media, or modes of communication. This concept is key to understanding how semiotic resources are transformed and reinterpreted as they circulate within and across different discourse communities. Contextual shifts. When a message moves from one context to another, e.g., from a formal presentation to social media, its meaning can shift depending on the new social, cultural, or institutional norms. Mode shifts. Moving from one semiotic mode to another can also alter meaning. For example, translating a spoken conversation into written form might change the tone or reduce the emotional impact. Example: a hashtag like #BlackLivesMatter initially started on social media as a rallying cry for racial justice. As it gained visibility, it moved into other contexts, news reports, political speeches, and even advertisements, where its meaning was sometimes transformed, adapted, or diluted depending on how and where it was used. Each new context and medium reshaped its semiotic impact. Intersemiotic relations. The interaction between different semiotic modes. Intersemiotic relations refer to how different semiotic modes work together to create coherent meaning in multimodal texts. Analyzing these relationships involves looking at how language, images, gestures, and other resources complement or contrast with one another in the meaning-making process. Complementary modes. Different modes may work together to enhance meaning. For example, a text might describe something abstract, while an accompanying image provides a concrete illustration of the concept. Contradictory modes. In some cases, different modes may convey conflicting messages, leading to ambiguity or irony. Example: in a political cartoon, the combination of a caption, textual mode, and the drawing, visual mode, creates meaning through their interplay. The text might offer a literal interpretation of a political issue, while the image satirizes or critiques the issue. The relationship between the two modes adds complexity and depth to the overall message. Cultural and social connotations. How semiotic resources reflect cultural values. Semiotic resources are deeply embedded in cultural and social contexts, carrying connotations that reflect societal values, norms, and power structures. Discourse analysis of semiotic resources involves understanding how certain symbols, images, or words evoke specific cultural meanings and how these meanings are shaped by broader ideological frameworks. Cultural symbols. Certain symbols carry significant cultural weight. For instance, national flags, religious symbols, or corporate logos evoke specific values or histories. Social connotations. Semiotic resources also convey social meanings. The way someone dresses, the design of a product, or the layout of a website can signal social status, group affiliation, or ideology. Example. The color white in many Western cultures is associated with purity or innocence, often used in wedding dresses and religious ceremonies. However, in some East Asian cultures, white symbolizes mourning and death. The cultural context shapes the connotations and meaning of the color, even though it remains the same in its material form. Power and ideology. How semiotic resources reflect and maintain power structures. Semiotic resources are often used to communicate and reinforce power relations and ideological perspectives. Certain symbols, images, or modes of communication can reflect dominant ideologies, while others might be used to resist or challenge these power structures. Dominant semiotic practices. The use of particular semiotic resources, e.g., official language, corporate branding, media images, can maintain existing power dynamics by promoting specific ways of seeing the world. Resistance and subversion. Semiotic resources can also be used to challenge dominant ideologies, often through subversive or oppositional discourse. This might involve reclaiming symbols or creating alternative visual or linguistic practices. Example. In advertising, companies often use luxury symbols, such as sleek, minimalist designs and expensive materials, to create an association between their brand and wealth or status. This reinforces capitalist ideologies that equate consumption with success. However, countercultural movements may use graffiti or street art, alternative semiotic resources, to challenge corporate dominance and express resistance to consumerism. Point 2. Examples of semiotic resources in discourse analysis. Example 1. Political campaign posters. Context. Analyzing how semiotic resources are used in political campaign posters. Semiotic resources. A campaign poster might combine text, the candidate's name and slogan, visual elements, a photograph of the candidate, color schemes, patriotic red, white, and blue, and layout, the positioning of the candidate's image at the center. Together, these semiotic resources create a message that emphasizes patriotism, leadership, and trustworthiness. The use of iconic symbols like national flags or monuments reinforces these themes. Example 2. Social media memes. Context. Analyzing semiotic resources in Internet memes. Semiotic resources. Memes typically combine visual elements, e.g., a humorous or recognizable image, with textual captions. The image provides the context, while the caption often delivers the punchline or commentary. Memes rely on intertextuality and cultural knowledge, using well-known images or phrases that carry meaning across different platforms and audiences. The multimodal nature of memes, combining image and text, amplifies their communicative power in online discourse. Example 3. Classroom interaction. Context. Analyzing how teachers use semiotic resources in the classroom. Semiotic resources. A teacher explaining a math problem might use gestures to emphasize important points, write numbers and symbols on a whiteboard, visual mode, and verbally explain the steps, textual mode. These semiotic resources work together to enhance students' understanding of the lesson. The teacher's tone of voice and facial expressions, gestural mode, also provide additional clues about the difficulty or importance of the problem. Example 4. Corporate branding. Context. Analyzing semiotic resources in corporate branding. Semiotic resources. A company's logo, product packaging, website design, and advertising materials all contribute to its brand identity. For example, Apple's sleek, minimalist design aesthetic communicates innovation and simplicity, while its use of a monochromatic color scheme, visual mode, reinforces the idea of cutting-edge technology. The semiotic resources used in branding reflect and shape consumers' perceptions of the company and its products. Conclusion. The analysis of semiotic resources in discourse analysis highlights the rich complexity of how meaning is created through various modes of communication. By examining how textual, visual, auditory, and gestural resources interact, discourse analysts can better understand the multimodal nature of communication in different social, cultural, and political contexts. Semiotic resources are crucial for shaping how people interpret messages, construct identities, and navigate power dynamics. Understanding how these resources work together offers valuable insights into the ways language and symbols shape our social realities. Frequently asked questions. What are semiotic resources in discourse analysis? Semiotic resources in discourse analysis refer to the various modes, signs, and symbols used to create meaning. These encompass not just spoken or written language, but also visual images, gestures, spatial arrangements, and sounds. They are analyzed to understand how individuals use different signs and modes to convey meaning, represent identities, and influence interpretation within various social contexts. How does multimodality contribute to discourse analysis? Multimodality in discourse analysis examines how different semiotic modes, e.g., text, images, gestures, sound, interact to create meaning. By analyzing the interplay of these modes, researchers can understand how communication extends beyond language to include visual and auditory elements. For example, a political advertisement uses text, images, and music together to evoke emotions and convey a message that is richer than words alone. What role do signs and symbols play in semiotic resources? Signs and symbols are fundamental to semiotics, which studies how meaning is constructed. Signs can be iconic, resembling what they represent, indexical, having a causal link, or symbolic, relying on cultural conventions. For example, a corporate logo like Apple's is iconic and symbolic, visually resembling an apple and culturally representing innovation. In discourse analysis, understanding these signs helps reveal how meanings are constructed and communicated. Why is the materiality of semiotic resources important in discourse analysis? Materiality refers to the physical or sensory form of semiotic elements, influencing how they are interpreted. For example, the medium of communication, a tweet versus a formal letter, affects the perception of the message. Similarly, gestures and body language add layers of meaning to spoken words. Analyzing the materiality helps uncover how the physical presence of signs, sounds, and images shapes the meaning-making process. What are modal affordances in the context of semiotic resources? Modal affordances are the capabilities and limitations of different semiotic modes. Each mode, linguistic, visual, auditory, gestural, offers unique ways to convey meaning. For instance, images can quickly communicate complex ideas, while language can express abstract concepts. By analyzing modal affordances, discourse analysts can understand how combining modes like image and text in a meme creates nuanced meanings. How does resemiotization affect the interpretation of meaning? Resemiotization is the transformation of meaning as it moves across different contexts and modes. A message's meaning can change depending on the social, cultural, or institutional context it enters. For example, the hashtag Black Lives Matter transformed as it circulated across social media, news reports, and political speeches. Each context reshaped its meaning and impact, highlighting the fluidity of semiotic resources in discourse. What are intersemiotic relations, and why are they significant? Intersemiotic relations refer to how different semiotic modes interact to create coherent meanings in multimodal texts. They can be complementary, enhancing meaning, or contradictory, creating ambiguity. For example, in a political cartoon, the text and visual elements work together to critique an issue, adding layers of complexity to the message. Analyzing these relationships reveals how various modes support or challenge each other in discourse. How do semiotic resources reflect cultural and social connotations? Semiotic resources carry connotations that reflect cultural values and societal norms. Symbols, colors, and images evoke specific cultural meanings shaped by broader ideological frameworks. For instance, The color white symbolizes purity in many Western cultures but mourning in some East Asian cultures. Analyzing these connotations helps discourse analysts understand how cultural context influences the interpretation of semiotic resources. In what ways do semiotic resources convey power and ideology? Semiotic resources can both reflect and maintain power structures. Dominant symbols and modes of communication often promote specific ideologies, while alternative practices can resist or subvert these narratives. For example, luxury advertising reinforces capitalist ideals, whereas street art may challenge consumerism. Discourse analysis of these resources reveals how language and symbols are used to assert or contest power within society. Can you provide examples of how semiotic resources are analyzed in various contexts? Political campaign posters combine text, images, colors, and layout to convey messages of leadership and patriotism. Iconic symbols like national flags reinforce these themes. Social media memes use images and text together to create humor or commentary, relying on cultural knowledge and intertextuality. Classroom interaction. Teachers use gestures, writing, and verbal explanation to enhance students' understanding of a lesson. Corporate branding. Logos, product design, and advertising shape consumers' perceptions, reflecting brand identity and cultural values.